In your opinion, what are the key elements in building a successful youth volunteer role or rules and youth volunteer teams? What do you think are some necessary things that you should have for it to be successful?
I think it's really important to think about designing youth volunteer roles with youth. So to co-design them in a ways that are meaningful for youth themselves. So not to have them be built by adults or by others, but to actually sit with youth or to have youth involved in the designing and the delivery of all aspects of volunteer programs is an amazing way to think about including youth perspective and youth expertise in that process.
So one of the other angles I'd like to add is the fact that when I think it's building a team, I think it's really important to have a vision, and have a vision that everyone is contributing as their own respective leader. As I feel that one of the really cool things about volunteering, and one of the things I enjoy a lot, is the fact that there doesn't have to be one leader. Everyone can contribute to that vision, that shared vision. Everyone can add on to it and help it progress. So I think one of the most important things to do when establishing a volunteer role is establishing or coming up with some vision that you all have and you all share. And to add on to Heather, so it can be really troubling sometimes to juggle school and volunteering. But when you have a vision and you have a passion and you're trying to work towards completing that, I would be willing to put more time with that. It becomes a hobby. And I think that when we treat it as a sort of environment, like a family, like when I talk to my friends in the meet, yes, we're talking about what we want to do, but now we're also getting to learn about each other, and I found that's one of the cool things about having a team. So I think it's important to have a team where everyone is heard, everyone is their own leader, and everyone can grow. And then that combined strength can be used to progress your vision forward.
Make sure you include youth voices, because we have a lot of different organizations that are dealing now with, having issues with youth engagement. And I think a part of it is that a lot of those programs are designed by adults, and we are really not listening and engaging to the needs of our own youth. So creating opportunities, new opportunities for youth to take leadership, to take important roles within your organization, and to make sure you support them. A part of volunteering or community involvement, it's also that kind of mentorship that they can get from the organizations or the community they're working with. So I invite you guys to create more opportunities for youth, because that's what our youth are saying. That's what they keep telling me, that they want more opportunities where they can, take the lead, where they can participate. And when they feel that they are recognized for who they are, they're just not a volunteer that is coming to do something. They're a human being that, has a story, has a journey, and now is using those passions and those experiences to get involved. So acknowledge that. Yeah.
It's great to treat these opportunities as a relationship building exercise. I always, when I'm in a leadership position, like to kind of act like we're not just participants, we're people too. So I always do introductions at the start, talk about how their day is going, and at the end kind of check in with how people are feeling. I also think that it's very important to recognize diversity as a strength, not only based on identity, but also in terms of availability and skill set. When I was designing the deep dive series for Volunteer Waterloo Region, there were a great many youth who really wanted to take a leadership position. They wanted to help design the series. They wanted to lead meetings. And there were other folks who maybe didn't have the time, who maybe weren't quite there on their pathway of developing to those skills. So I found that creating a diversity of positions alongside the youth, as was mentioned before, was very helpful. That way, everybody had something to do that was appropriate to both their availability and their skill level.
Give youth a lot of leadership opportunities, so then they can take the initiative and the responsibility to make sure that these teams are ongoing and that their projects are being completed. And I think regular agendas are also essential, because that allows teams to know what they have to do in a day and what they have to complete, because otherwise I feel like just talking about what they're going to do and just brainstorming is not going to actually make an impact, and it's not going to have real action. So by setting these action items and having goals for each day and checking those off, I think that's key to allow the groups to be more successful.
I echo everything that Megan and Josh has said, and I would add to that I think for the leaders of volunteers and organizations, it's also recognizing just the youth often have limited time to volunteer. You're balancing school, you're balancing part-time jobs in some cases, family responsibilities. So not to put out sort of cookie cutter style opportunities, and echoing back around some of the comments made around the good youth engagement that was talked about earlier, being able to talk about what the impact youth will have. I know there's a great deal of pressure, I think, put on youth from their school systems. Get your 40 hours. But I think what we're missing is that opportunity to talk about what your impact is going to have. What are those skills that you're going to be able to bring that are going to help enhance those experiences, but also ensuring that roles fit into youth availabilities, taking into account that there are exam times, that there is March break, and finding that flexibility, which may require changes at a senior leadership level in organizations. And I think, again, as Megan has mentioned, that's a great way to engage youth in the development of that. Maybe it's an opportunity for youth to speak to a group of people that perhaps haven't really thought that through. Providing youth with some leadership opportunities and some opportunities to build up public speaking, while at the same time being able to showcase through the leaders of volunteers in those organizations that flexibility is necessary and the benefits are going to be huge for everybody who gets involved.
I found that when I asked my former co-collaborators on projects that I'd worked with, whether that be with Volunteer Waterloo Region Deep Dive or Our Kids Network's Halton Youth Initiative, when I asked why they stayed, one of the main reasons that I got was that they cared about the issue that we were talking about. I led a lot of topics on climate change and Indigenous sovereignty and that kind of thing. So I found that taking an issue-based approach, kind of taking community issues that youth are passionate about, that they want to solve, helped give a sense of real-world impact to the work that we were doing, helped tie it back to something that would add value to the community, and was a great source of inspiration when it came to keeping folks motivated that we were creating something a little bit bigger than ourselves. And of course, it's not limited to climate change or Indigenous sovereignty. I just tend to specialize in those areas, but mental health, queer rights, support for immigrants are all very, very great issues that I've seen youth want to focus on.
So just from my perspective, a key element in building successful youth volunteer roles or teams, personally, one of my favorite parts of being a volunteer manager over the last 8 years has been actually focusing on the idea of community involvement instead of it always just being service. So just to expand on that a little bit more, community involvement would mean if I had a booth at a community event that youth were helping me at, instead of service just being sit at the booth and do the booth thing for 2 hours, community involvement is, hey, take a half an hour of your 2-hour volunteer shift and go around the event. I want you to go to all of the booths, you to go see the service providers. I want you to see the local bands. I want you to get familiar with even just what street you're on. And that was actually like a really inherently important component of some of the in-person opportunities that I was able to offer. So now that we're approaching getting really back into that, I really want folks to think about that. People who are in those positions of power, is that part of that flexibility of a youth volunteer role isn't just how much time they can spend and like different capabilities, but it's actually about recognizing that community involvement means getting to know their surroundings, right? Do they know who their mayor is? Do they know the different organizations in town?
One of the things I was just reflecting on is that I think young youth and younger people are those that have the solutions for the future problems for which we haven't even articulated or even had the words or the language to describe. And I think one of the challenges we have is around how do adults or those with power shift power to younger people who are going to find solutions to the problems that we need to figure out how to collectively address and resolve. And that comes through volunteering, but it also comes just through involving youth in solving all sorts of issues and all sorts of problems in real meaningful ways. And so to that end, I just think we have to rethink how we actually allow the creativity and the imagination and the passion that young people and youth bring to the table to actually drive collective community-based solutions in new ways. And so even thinking about some of the structures I think sometimes that exist in volunteering limit the ways that youth might creatively reimagine the problem or come and bring solutions to the table. So like Lily was talking about in terms of community involvement, I think putting youth in the driver's seat around the actual solutions to the problems, not just in the like token ways of getting them involved, is a really critical approach or critical way of rethinking it and thinking about how to shift power concretely and shift resources and shift thinking about solutions.